What do your clothes say about you? That's why I was laughing.
Well, currently, it says that I'm a bum that doesn't clean himself.
I don't know.
Maybe I'm comfortable. I wear a lot of clothes that makes me want to feel good. To feel comfortable. I shouldn't eat. I shouldn't eat those chips. They make me cough. Okay.
Do you need some water?
No.
Okay. Second question. What's something most people don't know about you?
Here's something that not everybody knows about me. Even if I'm hearing what you're saying or agreeing with your perspective to an extent doesn't mean that I think it's correct. So people will have a tendency to think, because I'm like, yeah, I get you, I understand. Or yeah, there's a better word. If I understand somebody, just because I understand what you're saying or know where you're coming from, doesn't mean that I automatically agree with what you're saying or what you're doing as a result of that. Because I have a tendency to, because I leave room and space for people to be themselves, and when people feel accepting of that, then that can have a tendency to make them think that I don't think anything that they do is wrong, I guess, in a way. Sometimes, not all the time, but if somebody doesn't know me as well, then they'll probably talk to me, and because I'm listening and just like, yeah, I mean, I get that, I understand, or something like that, then
or even just nodding and saying,
they probably have a tendency to think like, oh yeah, well, see, he gets it. Maybe it doesn't do anything to change what they're doing all the time, because I'm not being forceful to make anything happen necessarily. I don't know. Do you think that's true?
I think something that I've noticed, and you tell me what you think about this, but I think a lot of times people fill in the gaps with what you don't say, because a lot of people are always looking to see how others are going to respond to them, because we want to know that we are affirmed a lot of times in what we're saying, and we want someone, probably most of the time we want someone to either agree with us or back us up with what we're saying. But I would say more than anything, what I've noticed with you is when you're not saying anything, then there's still things going on internally with you. You're just not voicing it. Like, I think a lot of times in comparison to what I say, like for instance, I'll be quick to have a response to someone because I'm always thinking about whether or not I'm filtering out whether or not I accept or or judge or dismiss what somebody is saying. And I think for you, you do leave space to hear fully what somebody is saying, and that I appreciate. And I think that people do appreciate that, whether they understand you agree with them or not. But a lot of times when you don't say anything, I think people do assume that you're just agreeing with them. But you're right, it doesn't mean that you're agreeing with them or not. I think you just are very good about leaving that space. And I want to ask you a second question in regards to that. Do you care, do you seem to care a lot about whether or not people judge you in that way? About how you're responding to them, or how you accept or judge or agree or disagree with them? Do you seem to care a lot about that, or no?
I mean, what do you mean, judge me?
The way you're responding to them. Do you care a lot about how people judge that, the way you respond to them?
No. Not really. I mean, well, I don't.
No, really.
Like, what would
No.
you mean by,
I've
like, what
noticed.
do they, what would be judging?
What would be judging?
Yeah.
Anything. I don't know. That, I know it's maybe a broader question than you want, but do you care about what people think of your response? Do you care that they think you're judging them or not? So I care a lot, but I still do. It's like my natural instinct.
I'd say for the most part, no, but on some level, yeah, because I feel like because I leave so much room for people, and the people that do know me, if they say that I'm being judgmental, I guess that on some level it would be irritating, even if I say I don't care. Then it would be irritating because either based on two things, I guess you could say. I both know that I leave room for somebody, so I'm doing things that are purposely leaving room for non-judgment, because we're having a human moment right now. So I'm saying, that's why I'm saying, when I say I understand, that's what I'm saying is like, I get it, because that's like a human thing to have happen to you, or a human situation, based on the fact that everybody
Finding
gets
ways to relate.
Yeah, if that's something I can relate to, because it's a general human thing that everybody deals with, like getting angry or not wanting to tell your mom and dad something, or
Pretty much everything to me is a human thing. It just, maybe you don't have that should or should not in your mind as much as I do.
well, I do. I just think I see how the should or should not thing isn't the most important thing to harp on, because a lot of the should or should not things that people tend to think are important really aren't as important as they're making it out to be, or they're usually just as guilty of doing as somebody else that they're like coming down on for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I see what you're saying and I get it, but you're like overkilling it on this person, and you could definitely be the same way, or you can,
yeah, but are you
like,
voicing it that way?
how would you feel if somebody did that to you when you were in that situation? That's how I look at it. If it's like, I try at least. I mean, it's harder if you haven't been through, like, experienced the situation yourself. But I try to look at somebody and say, what would I want somebody to do for me if I was that person, or if I was in this situation? And usually, it's a simpler answer most of the time, where it's like, I would want somebody to listen. I would want somebody to be compassionate, even if what I did was wrong. And I would want someone to try to understand where I'm coming from. But then at the same time, I would want somebody to be constructive in their criticism, even though that's probably the part that I have a tough part with sometimes, is people criticizing me. But I would want, I think the reason that I have a problem with the criticism aspect is because people can so easily criticize in the wrong way, and either being too harsh or just harp on the wrong thing, that's not like the root of the issue. So I'm intentionally trying to be like, what I would think is going to the root of what I see as the issue, whether it's that person's motivation or that person's line of thinking, and I'm analyzing what to do based on that context. So it's like being very enveloped in nuance and context of the situation. But I think I'm very good at doing that for other people, but I'm not as good at either letting the same process happen to me sometimes, or I think on some level it's harder for me to accept that I am wrong. I don't think that's like my biggest problem probably, but I think on some level.
You could say that's a human problem.
Well, yeah.
I think.
Nobody
wants to admit they're wrong.
Yeah, nobody wants to be wrong.
That's not the worst thing ever for me, though.
I think the people that are moralistic, or like, you shouldn't do this or you should do that, and like very like preachy to people, are doing that because they don't want to be wrong, because they want to be seen as good. And if you're good, then you can't be wrong. Which is the one thing. Because they're criticizing themselves so hard that they're externalizing that criticism on other people.
Yeah, I don't care as much. Like, I'll admit I'm wrong sometimes, even when I don't really think I'm wrong, just to like diffuse, I think sometimes even, because I don't want for people to think negatively of me.
I do that too.
So for me, it's not about
if somebody fights me enough, I definitely go inside if I care about the person, I go inside and just let them win to some extent, or win to some extent, because I'm trying not to hurt that person. So I shut down, and that probably makes some people think that they won, but it didn't change my opinion just because I shut up, I guess.
Can I watch Olivia? I'll stop real quick.
Yeah.
She just keeps crying. One second.
You don't need to stop it.
Just keep it going.
Yeah.
It's long. You're gonna have to break that up.
Fine.